The silence meter. Maniaco de luz vermelha. K's get in. Close the door tight. Where to? Doesn't matter. We're going back. Way back. São Paulo, 1960s. You ever hear about Brazil's first serial killer? Before profiling, before forensic, before anyone in Brazil even understood what a serial killer was. His name? Nobody knows. They called him the Maniaco de luz vermelha, the Red Light Maniac. Between 1965 and 1967, he terrorized São Paulo, broke into homes, raped women, killed men and women alike. No pattern, no motive, just chaos. He didn't rob. He didn't steal valuables. He came for terror. And here's the thing that made him different. He talked. During the attacks, he'd philosophize, quote poetry, talk about society, about justice, about God. His victims said he spoke like an intellectual, like someone educated, but he acted like a demon. 10 confirmed victims, maybe more. And then, August 1967, police caught someone, a man named Luiz Alfredo Corrêa de Rocha, known as Luiz de Luz Vermelha. He confessed, was convicted, sent to a psychiatric hospital. Case closed, except it wasn't, because even after Luiz was locked up, the attacks continued. Same MO, same violence, same philosophical rambling. Tonight we're going to 1960s São Paulo. We're going back to a time when Brazil didn't know how to handle a predator who killed without reason. We're talking about Brazil's first serial killer, or maybe its first two. You buckled in? Good, because this one doesn't end with justice. It ends with a question. Did they catch the right man? Let me tell you about the maniac who haunted São Paulo and the mystery that never truly died. Body of the story, São Paulo, 1965. São Paulo in the 1960s was booming. Industry, immigration, growth. But with growth came chaos, overcrowding, crime. The police were overwhelmed, underfunded, barely trained. And into this chaos came something new, a predator. The first attacks, 1965. The first confirmed attack happened in August 1965. A woman alone in her apartment, working-class neighborhood, middle of the night. Her window was forced open. A man climbed in, face covered, knife in hand. He raped her, but before he left, he did something strange. He talked, rambled about philosophy, about morality, about how society had failed. Then he disappeared into the night. The woman reported it. Police took notes. One assault, terrible, but not unusual for a city of millions. Then it happened again, and again, and again. The pattern emerges by late 1965. Police realized they had a problem. Multiple break-ins, always at night, always women alone or couples. The attacker wore dark clothing, covered his face, carried a knife or gun, raped female victims, sometimes killed, shooting or stabbing, always talked during the attacks. Victims described him as medium height, thin build, spoke educated Portuguese, formal, almost theatrical, quoted poets, philosopher, calm, deliberate, terrifying. He didn't steal money or valuables. He came for control, for violence, for fear. The terror spreads. 1966. By 1966, São Paulo was terrified. Women lived in fear. Neighborhoods, organized watch groups. People slept with weapons. The attacks were random. No clear victim profile. Young women, older women, couples, solo residents, rich neighborhood, poor neighborhoods. He was everywhere, and police had no leads, no fingerprints, no witnesses who saw his face, no patterns they could predict. He struck when and where he wanted. The phone calls. In 1966, things escalated. The killer started calling newspapers. He'd phone journalists, taunt police, describe his crime. He called himself the judge, said he was punishing a corrupt society. He quoted Nietzsche, Dostoevsky, the Bible. He'd laugh, hang up. Journalists published the call. The public was horrified. This wasn't just a criminal. This was someone who enjoyed it, who saw himself as intellectually superior, who believed he had a mission. The victims between 1965 and 1967, at least 10 people were killed by the Red Light Maniac. Some confirmed victims, 1965, several rapes, at least 2 murders. 1966. Multiple attacks, 3 confirmed murders. 1967. Escalation, more violence, more killings. Each attack followed the same pattern. Break-in, knife or gun, rape, violence. Philosophical monologue, escape. Police were helpless. The city was paralyzed by fear. And then in August 1967, they got a break. The arrest, August 1967. August 4th, 1967. A man was arrested after a break-in attempt in São Paulo. His name? Luiz Alfredo Corrêa de Rocha, 27 years old, petty criminal, history of theft and assault. Police questioned, and he confessed, said he was the Red Light Maniac, described attacks in detail, knew things only the killer would know. São Paulo exhaled. The nightmare was over. Who was Luiz da Luz Vermelha? Luiz Alfredo Corrêa da Rocha, born 1940, São Paulo, troubled childhood, abusive father, poverty, dropped out of school, started committing petty crimes as a teenager. By his 20s he had a record: theft, assault, breaking, and entering, but nothing like serial rape and murder. After his arrest, psychiatrists evaluated him. Diagnosis: severe mental illness, possible schizophrenia, delusion. He claimed to hear voices, said God told him to punish sinners. He was deemed unfit to stand trial. In 1968, he was committed to a psychiatric hospital, Manicomio Judiciario de Franco de Rocha, not prison, hospital, indefinite detention, case closed. Except the attacks continued, late 1967, early 1968. Luis was locked up, but the attacks continued. Same MO, same pattern, same philosophical rambling. Women reported break-in, rapes. The killer spoke like an intellectual, quoted philosopher, just like before. Police were baffled. Had Luis inspired copycats? Or had they arrested the wrong man? The copycat theory. Some investigators believed Luis was the original killer, but that his arrest and media coverage inspired imitators. The case was so famous, the method so well publicized, anyone could replicate, but others weren't so sure, because the attacks after Luis's arrest weren't just similar, they were identical, down to specific phrases, specific ritual, as if the same man was still out there. The mystery deepened. By the early 1970s, the attacks had mostly stopped, a few incidents here and there, but the reign of terror was over. Police never arrested anyone else. Luis remained institutional, and the question lingered. Was Luis the real Red Light Maniac? Or was he a mentally ill man who confessed to crimes he didn't commit, while the real killer got away? Luis's life in the hospital. Luis spent 36 years in the psychiatric hospital. He was violent, difficult, medicated heavily. Over the years, he gave conflicting statements. Sometimes he insisted he was the killer. Other times he denied it. Sometimes he claimed there were multiple killers. Sometimes he said the voices told him to confess. In 2004, at age 64, Luis died in the hospital. He never faced trial, never saw freedom, and he took his secrets, whatever they were, to the grave. The debate continues to this day. Criminologists and historians debate. Was Luis the Red Light Maniac? Evidence 4. He confessed with details only the killer would know. He had a history of violence. The attacks decreased significantly after his arrest. Evidence against. Attacks continued after his arrest. Some victims said the attacker was taller, heavier than Luis. Luis was severely mentally ill. Could he have orchestrated such calculated crime? Some confessions seemed coached or fabricated. The other suspects. Over the years, alternative theories emerged. Theory 1. There were 2 Red Light Maniacs, Luis and someone else operating simultaneously. Theory 2. Luis was a copycat. The real killer was never caught. Theory 3. Luis confessed falsely due to mental illness and coercion. The real killer walked free. No definitive answer, because Brazil in the 1960s didn't have DNA testing, forensic profiling, or organized criminal database, just confession and guesswork. Theories. Theory 1. Luis was the killer. He confessed, gave detail, was violent and mentally disturbed. The attacks largely stopped after his arrest. Simple answer, Luis was guilty. Problem. the attacks that continued after his arrest, the physical descriptions that didn't match, the sheer calculated intelligence of the crimes versus Luiz's severe mental illness. Theory 2. Luiz was a copycat. The real Red Light Maniac was active. 1965, 1966. Luiz, inspired by media coverage, committed similar crimes in 1967. When arrested, he confessed to everything, even crimes he didn't commit because of delusion. The real killer stopped and was never caught. Problem: some of Luiz's confession included details not made public. How would he know? Theory 3. There were two killers, two men, operating independently with similar methods. Luiz was one. The other was never caught. This explains the continued attacks after Luiz's arrest. Problem: two serial killers with identical MOs in the same city at the same time? Statistically unlikely. Theory 4. Police coercion. Luiz was mentally ill. Police, desperate for a solution, coerced his confession, fed him detail, pressured him, convinced him he was guilty. The real killer was never caught. Evidence: Brazilian police in the 1960s were known for brutal interrogation tactics. Luiz's mental state made him vulnerable. Theory 5. The killer was someone else entirely. Luiz confessed, was committed, but was innocent. The real Red Light Maniac was a respected citizen who evaded suspicion, someone who moved to another city, or someone who died or stopped killing for personal reasons. The attacks after 1967 were unrelated crime, sensationalized by media. The unanswered question: was Luiz the real killer? If not, who was? Why did the attacks stop in the early 1970s? How many victims were there really? Were any of the later attacks by the original killer? We'll never know, because everyone involved is dead, and the evidence is gone. Closing. We're here. Look, I don't know if Luiz was the Red Light Maniac. Maybe he was. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe there were two killers. Maybe the real one got away. What I do know is this. For 2 years, São Paulo lived in terror. Women were raped. People were murdered. And when police finally arrested someone, the attacks didn't stop. Luiz spent 36 years in a psychiatric hospital, never stood trial, never saw freedom, died institutionalized. Was that justice? Or was it just convenient? The Red Light Maniac, whoever he was, exposed something about Brazil. The justice system wasn't ready for serial killers. Police didn't know how to investigate, didn't have tools, didn't have training. So when they got a confession, even a questionable one, they took it, closed the case, moved on. But the victims' families never moved on. The women who survived never moved on. And the question: was Luiz really the killer? Never got a real answer. The meter's off. São Paulo's moved on, grown, modernized, but somewhere in the archive, there's a file. Maníaco da Luz Vermelha, closed, but not solved. There's an ancient principle that says evil hides in darkness, that those who do wrong seek shadows because they fear exposure. The Red Light Maniac, whoever he was, came in the dark, broke through windows, violated sanctuary, destroyed lives, and then disappeared. Like smoke, there's a truth woven into existence, that the wicked cannot hide forever, that what's done in secret will be brought to light, that justice, even if delayed, will come. But what if it doesn't? What if the Red Light Maniac wasn't Luiz? What if he died peacefully, never caught, never punished? What if he lived a normal life while his victims lived in fear? That's the uncomfortable reality of some cases. Not all killers get caught. Not all crimes get solved. Not all justice gets served. Luiz confessed, was committed, died in a hospital. If he was the killer, he paid. Sort of. Not prison, but confinement. Not trial, but institutionalization. If he wasn't the killer, then he was a mentally ill man who spent 36 years locked up for crimes he didn't commit. And the real killer got away. There's a warning in ancient wisdom that the guilty carry a weight, that those who harm others destroy something in themselves, that evil eats its host from the inside. I don't know if the Red Light Maniac felt guilt. Victims said he was calm, philosophical, almost proud. But I wonder, did he ever think about them? The women he violated, the people he killed. Did he lie awake at night? Or did he sleep soundly, convinced he was right? We're told that those who seek justice will find it, that the oppressed will be vindicated, that truth prevail. But sometimes truth just fades, lost to time, lost to incompetence, lost to a system that wasn't ready. The victims of the Red Light Maniac deserved answers. They deserved to know who hurt them. They deserved to see him punished. Some got that, if Luis was the killer. Others didn't, if he wasn't. And we'll never know which is true. Hey, thanks for taking this ride with me. I know this one's different. No clear answer, no definitive ending, just question. And that's the reality of some cases, especially old ones, especially in places where the system wasn't ready. If this case got to you, if you're frustrated by the uncertainty, if you think Luis deserves more scrutiny, if you believe the real killer might have escaped, do me a favor, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want more stories like this. Brazil's oldest mystery, cases that don't have clean ending. Drop a comment. Tell me what you think. Was Luis the Red Light Maniac? Or did the real killer get away? I read everyone. And if you know someone who's into true crime, unsolved mysteries, serial killer cases, share this with them. The algorithm likes it. And these stories deserve to be remembered. I've got more cases, more mystery, more stories from Brazil's dark history. Next time, we're going somewhere just as haunting. Until then, remember the victims. Remember that some cases don't get solved. And remember, evil doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it just walks away.